Hello, everyone. This is Daryl Guberman, CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. We just made front news today at the London Daily Post in England concerning manufacturing, and I'm very proud of this moment. You'll find that article down below. But today is a very special video to me because I've been following Mr. Christopher Wray, director of the FBI, for many, many moons now. And this video is FBI director warns of increased domestic threat linked to Israel-Hamas. QA expert Daryl Guberman explains. In the past, just most recently, back in November of 2022, Christopher Wray was under deposition, I think for a Senator's subcommittee or Congress. And he said, and I quote, that we must maintain vigilance over China because they affect our entire way of life. Also, that TikTok is a detriment to our world because it is in China and they're taking data. Well, actually, we're probably giving it away, as you will see in this presentation, that we are giving data to foreign countries like China. It is not hacking, it is not cybersecurity, and the same organizations that come out with all these protocols like NIST SP800, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is part of the Department of Commerce, okay? They are giving our data away because they sit on the American National Standards Institute board. Right over by the accreditation body, the American National Accrediting Board, which ANSI took over complete control over in 2018. Christopher Wray. What does Christopher Wray, FBI director, think of China? Christopher Wray, FBI, says the whole of the Chinese society is a threat to the U.S., and the Americans must step up to defend themselves. FBI Director Chris Wray says Chinese espionage poses most severe threat to American security. FBI Director Christopher Wray making his mark as a loud and insistent China critic. China determined to steal up economic ladder as U.S. expense chief, FBI Chief Christopher Wray says. Head of America's principal federal law enforcement agency calls intelligent threat posed by China broader and more severe than that of any other country. And I will tell you, when you see this, his organization has been watched over by communist China between 2015 and 21. So he may not know it. If he doesn't know it, he should be fired because he's the head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is what China thinks of Christopher Wray. Vulgar, arrogant, mentally challenged, a lowlife. Ask China's state media for an assessment of the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation's director, Christopher Wray, and the response will be less than flattering. People like Wray emanate the kind of vulgarity shown by history's career lowlifes. The vulgarity floods the U.S. administration today. Let's continue. We're going to go into this, and I'm going to tell you that I've been involved with quality for 40 plus years. My background is aerospace, medical implants, medical materials, printing, and plastic distribution, where we dealt with every industry under the sun. We've been in business now for 12 years, fighting the slings and arrows of ANSI, ANAB, and their henchmen, okay? We even got sued by one of them, where you have the former vice president of ANSI, ANAB, and he was the chairman and principal in the IAF tax report, say that he knows him best. He is a force to be reckoned with. And we're going to tell you this. We won. The guy had to walk away after 3 years of a waste of time that ANSI, ANAB tried to eliminate me. Well, let me tell you this. Let's move up. Before I get into this, I'm going to tell you some background. When I opened up my business in 2011, we were given the chance to do a speech at the American Society for Quality in 2013. There was a Region 3 director there, a Mr. David Levy. After giving my speech and all that, and he said during that speech, we have it on audio and we have it on video. I had it videotaped. And he said, Mr. Guberman, ANAB has no problem with what you do. In fact, we support you, sir. Well, let me just tell you this. The American Society for Quality and the American National Standards Institute at that time owned ANAB, the American National Crediting Board, 50-50. So there was a lot of weight there when he said that, but I didn't want their approval. I believe in independence. Moving up to 2016, the same guy who praised the guy who sued me, Randy Doty, who at the time was now the technical advisor of ANAP, and he was the treasurer and principal on the IAF tax report incorporated in Delaware, the International Accreditation Forum. He asked us to join either the IAF or ANAP or both. And as you'll see here, I'm a proud American. Are you proud business owners? Because if you're ANC ANAP, you better put up that communist red flag now, because it's on your watch. And I know what most of you are saying. Well, Daryl, ISO is a nuisance to us. AS9100 is a nuisance. Well, that's why we have failure in aerospace, because you think it's a nuisance. Let's continue on. So I didn't join. It was nice. I was flattered. But you know why I didn't join? Because in 2015, Randy Doty handed over the International Accreditation Forum, which is a repository for all these accreditation bodies. It's a repository. You know, for all national and international, the only national ones they have is like ANSI ANAB. They want to stick your finger right there. And you have UKS over there, Accredia. You have NAZI, which is Iran, and PANC, which is Pakistan, and others that are on board that are equivalent in accreditation to ANAP. ANSI, ANAP are underwriters for the International Accreditation Forum and also ILAC, the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. And the most funkiest thing, by the way, funky is a quality term. I don't want to use the other term that Russ Cheney uses at ANSI, half a nut, fuck you. That's what he did in 2019. But let's continue on. So, IAF is a repository for all these accreditation bodies. ANSI, ANAB are underwriters for all those accreditation bodies. That means if there's a failure in the process, that means the product, because they are underwriters, they take full product responsibility. They used to say, we only certify the system. Well, by them being underwriters, it's more than that, ladies and gentlemen. So let's continue. Their big word that they have is everything is voluntary. I've showed you in many videos that it's not voluntary, it's mandatory. Here goes a good one. Impartial oversight. Impartial oversight. That's a bunch of baloney. I proved that time and time again. And this is the word that structures not just inequality, but our politicians and all the rest of this. It's called obfuscation. The action of making something obscure, unclear, or unintelligible. That's quality for you. Now we're going to continue on. The reason why I do this is I truly believe that ANSI, ANAB, and the IAF and ILAC need an oversight body above them because they are doing some insidious things that are absolutely disgusting. In 2022, I applied for Director at Large at ANSI. Go back to 2019, I exposed an impropriety in laboratory accreditation. And what I did is I came out with a video. The video said, I exposed the accreditation body and ANSI and all this stuff. And this woman wrote me back and said underneath the video and said, well, ANSI and ANAB are separate accreditation bodies unto themselves. I proved not that it was not. A gentleman from, can I call him a gentleman? Well, a Russ Cheney, who is a chairman of ANSI, called me on the phone and said, half a nut, fuck you, to me. And I wrote a letter to Joe Bethia, the CEO, who should be fired. Their crackerjack lawyer, Jameson Carroll of Carroll and Weiss down in Atlanta, Georgia. I was just there. I should have gone and met him. But the sad part is, this guy, the lawyer, said he didn't hear anything. And and they never sent me an apology letter. So now we move up to 2022. I sent a 54-page document with 16 letters of recommendation. And guess who was the nominating chairman? No other than Russ Cheney. So I take it upon myself that all these people who sit as Director of Large, Microsoft, you got Jim Tassett, Lockheed over there, Boeing, you got so many others. When he said half a nut, fuck you to me on the phone, that's like Jim Tassett, okay, telling me to my face, because Russ Cheney was the chairman, and what he says is a the mantra of ANSI. So let's continue on. ANSI is a private, not-for-profit, non-governmental entity, and it has federal agencies and corporations on board. In 2015, Randy Doherty, then the vice president of ANAB, the chairman of the IF, and the principal of the IF tax firm incorporated in Delaware, handed over leadership of the IF to this communist Chinese national, Zhao Jinwu, who's been involved with our quality since 1994. He, at the time, was also the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services. China mandates him to take our data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. You have ANSI and ANAB. ANSI took over complete control over ANAB. In 2018, you have federal agencies and corporations on board. And here's a little bit larger picture for you to see. In fact, Randy wrote a document in January 2016 about how proud he was about handing over leadership to this communist Chinese national in 2016. He's been involved again with our quality since 1994. The funniest thing is that Randy in 2017 now, mind you, about a year after he invited me to join, which I would not join as a proud American. Would you business owners? Would you have joined? No way. Communist China watching over you? It gets better. So anyway, Randy was being advertised as the vice president in 2017 on the Department of Homeland Security website. And they were putting together a PPS certificate, a specialized cert for other organizations. Who the hell knows? But anyway, I did a video. They took them down because that's a private concern. That's like having Walmart being advertised on the Department of Homeland Security or FBI or FTC, whatever it takes. A private organization really should not interfere or be advertised on a government website. Okay, so they took him down, but there was a lot of espionage going on, a lot of hacking going on. FBI was losing information, FTC, DHS. And the funniest thing is Phil Matheson sat on ANSI's board, and he still sits there, I think, getting $256,000. I think he's the standards manager. Also, NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is run by the Department of Commerce, had Gordon Guillerman sitting on ANSI. So in ISO IEC 1711 for accreditation bodies and registration bodies. It basically says you can't have any type of, one of the sections is you can't have any financial, interests. But when you have ANSI paying NIST and paying the Department of Homeland Security, you got a problem. By the way, Gordon Guillerman was making $120,000. Phil Matheson was making $256,000, and by the way, that was a royalty payment until I exposed it. Now they call it various. Here's the man of the hour, Xi Jinping, who mandates Zhao Jinwu to take our data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. You have ANAB sitting on ANSI's board. ANSI took over complete control over ANAB in 2018. On top of that, you have ANSI and ANAB that sit on the IAF. At the time in 2015 to 2021, Christopher Wray's FBI sat majestically as a member on their board. Thus, they were being affiliated with Communist China. And if you think not, it gets better. Here are 10 different registrars in Communist China that can take their data. Yes, they can. And they are accredited by ANAB. They can issue an ANAB accredited certificate in China. Here is Zhao Jinwu standing in the lab issuing an ISO 17025 or certification for laboratory accreditation. And at the same time in 2017, a Miss Pamela Sale, who was a vice president of ANAB's laboratory accreditation, stated under deposition in Texas, in Austin, said that from one laboratory to another, there are variances. There is no protocol. We have the factor that IAF, the International Accreditation Forum Incorporated in Delaware, and ILAC, the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation in Australia, are sister organizations. The blasphemy that is going on is ILAC is run by an Israeli, while the IAF Incorporated in Delaware has both Iran and Pakistan on board. They are IAF MLAs, which is a multilateral agreement organization. And I don't say this to the people of those countries. I say it to the politicians. You have Pakistan, who harbored Osama bin Laden. You have Iran, who admitted to harboring some of the terrorists of 9/11. You have them admitting to assisting economically with Hamas, attacking Israel and all the rest of that mess. And you have Iraq, run by an Israeli national who doesn't even allow Iran to be on that organization, and vice versa. So we have two countries that admitted to killing Americans sitting on our board in America. You like that, ladies and gentlemen? Randy talks about IAF MLAs and MRAs. An IAF MLA is a multilateral agreement, and an MRA is a multi-regional agreement organization. They are equivalent in accreditation to ANAP, which means ANSI-ANAP, which ANSI-ANAP are underwriters for all those accreditation bodies. So anything goes down, you can blame ANSI-ANAP. In fact, I'll be your expert witness. I got all the data here and in other places. And here goes the two gentlemen. One's dead, the other one, I don't know. But anyway, Iran and Pakistan are equivalent in accreditation to ANSI-ANAP. They sit on the American board, the International Accreditation Forum. Who sits with them by Iran is ANSI-ANAP. Who sits on ANSI-ANAP? Well, FBI is one of them. So is the CDC, NIH, DOT, they're all there. And here we go. Here is the FBI sitting on ANSI's board. As I showed you, ANSI-ANAP sits on the IAF, right over by Iran and Pakistan. In fact, we have a contract. We have a contract from the FBI and ANAP. And several years ago, the Department of Forensic Science, which is run by the FBI, had to have their ANAP accredited cert taken away because of severe, glaring violations. So here you have a contract with the FBI and ANAP. And remember what Pamela Sales said, Vice President of Accreditation. She said from one laboratory to another, there are variances and lack protocol. Well, this is Mr. Christopher Wray came in after he made a discussion about how could be some problems with domestic issues with the Hamas-Israeli war. Well, guess what? After we exposed the factor about his organization being on ANSI's board and being on there between 2015 and 21, by him using those words about how bad China is and what they're doing to our country, this is what he looks like under deposition, but this is what he looks like at his office. Yes, at his office. And remember what he says. The whole of the Chinese society is a threat to the U.S. and that Americans must step up to the plate to defend themselves. I wonder if he can run with the red bulbous nose and his flappy feet. And I do this because I'm a proud American. That guy should be fired. And the final thing is this. And this goes out to all those people. Brian, Taylor, Kathy, Gary, Matt, who think that taking the road of least resistance is job number one. Well, you're involved with communist China. That's a given by being ANSI-ANAP accredited. I just showed you this. So I'm going to read this to you, and then we're going to bring this to a close. But corporations like the American National Standards Institute and the American National Crediting Board, colluding with Washington politicians and government cronies, have been selling out American citizens to China profiteers such as the International Accreditation Forum, the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation, the Inter-American Accreditation Cooperation, and so many other acronyms of obfuscation. For far too long, we the people are no longer going to allow these criminals to sacrifice American lives, American jobs, and American liberties for their luxurious lifestyles created from their acts of treason. And my last one is from Thomas Paine. And this goes to you, Christopher. Let's bring you out. And here it is. This is from me to you and from Thomas Paine. It is impossible to comprehend the moral mischief, if I may so express it, that mental lying has produced in our society. When a man or woman has so far corrupted and prostituted the chastity of their mind as to subscribe their professional beliefs to things they do not believe, they have prepared themselves the commission for every other crime. Now, do you trust his word talking about Hamas and Israel, about we must maintain vigilance, when his organization, through ANZI, is sitting right over by Iran and Pakistan, Iran, who is subsidizing Hamas? So his organization is right in there. This is Daryl Guberman, 203-556-1493, or Daryl, Daryl, TQRS at yahoo.com. I'm sorry for the length of this, but I want to get this through your head. And as Thomas Paine stated, and it's so true, when speaking the truth as I do, it's like administering medication to the dead.